In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern. We do have more cold and more snow, significantly more than the last couple of videos that we've watched, as models have started to back away from the overall warmer look in the central and eastern United States into a lot more of a neutral to even cold pattern at times. Multiple snow opportunities, even for pretty far south areas and pretty far east areas along the East Coast. So, we're going to be looking at that today. Yesterday was a bit of a crossroads as we moved away from what the models had been showing, and I decided not to make a video. I was a little busier, and the models had kind of jumped suddenly into a different direction. And I wanted to make sure that that was something they were going to stick around with, and we have seen that last at least another day. So, I'm starting to feel a little bit more confident that they have kind of, for the moment, shifted for at least a solid idea of what to expect. So we're going to be looking at this today. Let's look at the day today on Sunday, December 8th. I can't believe we're already to the 8th of December. We're going to be, into the heart of winter before we know it. But we do have some cooler air here along the northwest, a little bit of a ridge here across the Midwest, and then another little dip. It's hardly a dip here to the east, but it is a slight dip. So the warmest temperatures obviously going to be located here along the plains for today and into the Midwest. Although it is very nice along the East Coast as well, just not quite as warm. It was in the 60s here today in Virginia, so pretty beautiful weather after the very cold temperatures we've been having. There's people doing yard work outside. It's a whole different scene outside compared to what we have been seeing. We do see this cold and even snowy area across the northwest here, and this is the overall pattern for today, where snowfall is coming down for the Cascades, Rockies, northern Rockies that is, and even some of the northern plains and upper Midwest. We do have some rainfall down here for Texas into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, even some thunderstorms likely for that area in that pocket of tropical moisture. As we move towards Monday, we see a lot of this moisture has kind of shifted eastward as it's kind of shot up into the eastern states here. Something like this is what we're seeing. So again, showers, thunderstorms possible for tomorrow on Monday. We see this trough digging even deeper along the west, and this ridge now centered over the east coast. So warmer for tomorrow than it is today, at least if you're in the east coast. Things are cooling though for the northern plains significantly and the upper Midwest, as well as the Rockies here. Very, very cool weather. The kind of important part here is that there is still some warmer heights here along the west coast, and this is likely to kind of spark a new positive PNA pattern where we have warm out west and the cold is basically sent into the eastern states. This is eventually what I see us ending in because of this warmth that is starting to spread for the west. And that's exactly what brought our colder air for late November into the first week of December. As we reach towards Tuesday on the 10th, we see exactly as I just explained an expanding warm air mass along the west coast, and this is going to continue to shove this colder air eastward. Already, if we were to try to find the center of this trough, it's somewhere here along the central states. Very, very cold all the way down through New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma on the very southern end, but a lot of the plains here, Rockies, and Midwest areas involved in this cold. We still have warmth up the East Coast, but once this precipitation moves through, we should see things cool down here as well. As we reach towards Wednesday, this is when we get a potential snow system. Look at the expanding, this is by the morning, the expanding warmth out west and the cold air now centered over the Midwest, moving further and further eastward. We're seeing this low move along it. We have this strong boundary of precipitation all the way from Mexico, across the Gulf of Mexico, through the southeast, mid-Atlantic, and all the way up into Maine and even eastern Canada. We get a low forming along this though, and this cold air is moving closer and closer, and we're going to be watching for some potential snowfall. As we move towards 10 a.m., we see that start out for eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, eastern Ohio, even western West Virginia and western Pennsylvania. As we're reaching towards 1 p.m., we see this low is located over northern Virginia as a 998, pretty hefty actually, and the Appalachian Mountain Range starts to see some pretty heavy snowfall from this one. Western PA, eastern Ohio, pretty much all of West Virginia, western Virginia, eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, still seeing heavy snowfall. And this only continues to spread north and east over time. As we see this low intensify further, 985 now over northern Vermont. Now we're seeing western New York, central and western PA, and in through West Virginia, getting the heart of that snowfall. And then once we keep moving, we're going to see this basically move out with a cold front. And now there is some cooler air basically centered over the eastern states here once again. So we return to this very brutally cold pattern for the day on Thursday, really the evening on Wednesday into Thursday. We're seeing this. This becomes a very major snowstorm over Canada, by the way, eastern Canada. And we continue to hold on to this warmth for this southwest corridor here, which is the driving force in all of this. As we reach towards Friday, we see this cooldown is not as long-lived as our previous ones. Most aren't. And we're seeing this slightly lift off. If we were to look at the kind of jet stream, it's still dipping over the east, but just not quite as substantially. So still some colder temperatures over the east, but it's not going to be those absolutely brutal frigid temperatures anymore by Friday the 13th. We see another area of showers and thunderstorms very similarly to a week prior, or almost a week prior. Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, and Kansas here seeing some showers and thunderstorms prevailing. This positive PNA looking a little less impressive by this Friday time frame. And certainly by Saturday, it's looking less impressive. Saturday the 14th, as we have colder air and snowfall spreading for the northwest. A big ridge here over the central states and still a little bit of a trough over the east. This is bringing heavy snowfall to the Sierra Nevada, Northern Rockies, and the Cascade Mountain Range there. We also see some precipitation stacked like a column over some of our Midwest areas here, and we're seeing rainfall mostly to the south of this line, and then rainfall and mixed precipitation up there for the northern Great Lakes, northern kind of like upper Midwest there as well. Very light though. By Sunday, we see maybe a little bit more of something wants to spark up in this area. 1001 millibar low pressure center over southern Minnesota there. We do see the jet stream dipping a little further east now, and we even see a little bit of warmth wanting to flirt with starting back up for the west coast. Meanwhile, the east is warming here by this Sunday time frame. It's very similar to today, where we see this warming trend along the eastern seaboard. So again, the back and forth, really the battle here. But unlike our previous model runs, by Monday, this is the look that we're getting. A very hefty and strong positive PNA. Look at the high pressure. This is a feature that we saw a lot of times when we saw these strong positive PNAs developing here over the last couple of weeks. And we see cold air pouring into the plains and Midwest areas of the United States here. We even have some low pressure pretty broad up here, but a cold front is developing underneath, and this is going to pull it all in. But for Monday, this East Coast area is very warm. That is going to change very, very quickly, though. As we take a look at Tuesday, we see this colder air is moving in. Even some snowfall for Ohio and some of the Appalachian Mountain Range there. Not quite as intense as our upcoming Wednesday system, but it is quite similar. We have colder air around. We have a 993 right there near the Chesapeake Bay, and heavy snowfall prevailing for Western Virginia, West Virginia, and Western Pennsylvania. It is similar, not the same though. Heavy rainfall though for a lot of areas, and that low just moves up, kind of starts to become its own cold air maker and starts to produce snowfall to a lot of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast over the course of late Wednesday, Thursday, and into early Friday. We're left with colder air once again as the warm just continues out west. We get this kind of colder look towards the end here, but it comes at the same time. We see these close blue lines indicating very cold temperatures, but we start to get cold and snow trending back in for the Northwest at the same exact time. So this is what I think is really not allowing for this to move too far south. It's a little flat at this point, but nevertheless, still very cold throughout these northern 2/3 of the central and eastern states, I would say. We do have rainfall and showers happening, even thunderstorms here over the south central states, and then again, snowfall for a lot of these western mountains by the end of this model run. Here's the look on Tuesday, December 24th, Christmas Eve. A lot of snowfall to go around here for the Rockies, some of the plains here, some of the Midwest, some of the Ohio Valley, even in through like Virginia, North Carolina. Pretty far out, probably won't happen this way, but interesting to see. It's really crazy to see this heavy of precipitation with no real central low. So I'm a little doubtful there. Let's look at the European model, which is a little bit more aggressive with the snowfall. You guys heard me mention snow systems, and you probably are thinking like, hey, isn't there going to be more than this? We're a little less aggressive for this Wednesday system. We get, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York getting some snowfall, but it moves right out. We do see the cold air left over after it, just like the GFS model. And we get heavy lake effect snowfall in there once again, as the lakes are colder, but they still have juice left in them. They're still warm enough for lake effect snowfall to develop, so we might see more of that on the way after this cooldown for the upcoming Thursday. As we keep going, we do see this brief kind of milder pattern setup where we do get a low developing for Wisconsin, brings a heavy upper Midwest snowstorm for Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin around the Monday into Tuesday timeframe, 16th into 17th. As we keep going, we do get another system a little further south this time. Not a real strong low, but it's somewhere in there. We do see heavy snowfall again for the upper Midwest and then in through the Great Lakes like Michigan here. So a little further south with this second one for Thursday the 19th. Here is Friday the 20th, and we start to get some low pressure along the East Coast. And look at this. We get a low developing here right between West Virginia and Virginia. As we move an hour forward, or a couple of hours, towards 7 p.m., we see this low ends up near the Chesapeake Bay here. And we end up with some snowfall for the Appalachian Mountain Range for the most part. But as we keep going, we see this spreads for Northern Virginia, D.C., Maryland, areas of Central and Eastern PA, New York, into New England. It moves offshore, and eventually we end up with a snowstorm that could produce snowfall for Southern New England, into Boston, New York City right on the fence there. So this could be a classic Mid-Atlantic Northeast snowstorm in a hurry if this looks this way. And this is just before Christmas. But it's not done yet, and you might have, that snowstorm kind of overshadowed something. We have a very brutal positive PNA right here. This is stretching well up the western seaboard there of Canada. And as a result of that, we get deep Arctic air moving into Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, a deep diving Arctic blast here just before Christmas. And what we end up seeing here is a low developing near the East Coast as this cold air is moving in. We're seeing snowfall in areas of eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia, Chesapeake Bay, Delmarva here, obviously, New Jersey. This looks like 2010 to me with how exclusively it is for the eastern seaboard. This is pretty interesting, and the deep Arctic air is very reminiscent as well. Just a couple of days before Christmas, I hear people ask all the time every year about white Christmas odds. If we saw something like this continue to be the trend, this is looking like it could be the year. If we saw this amount of brutal cold air just before Christmas and during Christmas, that would be the look. This is a couple of hours later on Sunday, December 22nd at 1 p.m. We see eastern Maryland, eastern PA, areas of New Jersey, New York City, southern New England. But even, again, southeast Virginia, northeast North Carolina, my neck of the woods, I wish this would happen. I'm not having a bias because I'm going to tell you guys in a minute why this probably won't happen, but I do wish this would happen, I should say. But this is very far out. This cold is extremely aggressive, and very far out plus extremely aggressive, usually not the best combo. And the low isn't that conventional. It's not the traditional low. It just kind of like floats over from like the Atlantic over here somewhere, and then just moves up the East Coast. And typically we don't see them start out that way. Typically they kind of start out here in the plains, dip through the Gulf, and move up. So usually they're homegrown this time of year. So it's not very traditional. It's not impossible, but I am doubtful. I think the biggest thing we should be hoping for is this cold air to be in place, if you want a white Christmas, that is, or snow whatsoever, because the cold is what provides the opportunity, and then we're just waiting to see if a low can move along it. So this is the look. We do have a very, very healthy positive PNA for the majority of this model run. And then we have this deep Arctic air moving into the eastern states here. This is very, very cold. And as we move forward a couple of hours, we see this, I moved two, but we see for the mid-Atlantic, coastal areas here, we see continued snowfall for a long while. We end up with deep Arctic air sticking around the East Coast still by the 23rd of December here. We'll move into the snowfall in a minute, but for total precipitation, the GFS model is backing away from the west a little bit. A positive PNA brings drier times, and if we see the positive PNA trending in, you can expect drier times there for the west And as we look towards the east, we're seeing more and more precipitation. This is an increased amount and probably above average for most of these areas. I want to mention, if you're wanting snow, this is the usual flow in the east for big time snowstorms, is something like this. And you can tell that the precipitation reflects a lot of this type of a flow. This is what brings snow if the cold air matches it, and a lot of these models do. So this is a really interesting look. And I should also note that this is very El Nino-like, the kind of flow from the southeast up the east coast kind of look, and that's exactly what we see here. Nothing like the La Nina that's been forecasted for months and months and months. I think we're in a neutral ENSO, and I think we're going to stick in a neutral ENSO. A La Nada is what we call it, and those bring very favorable winters for cold and snow versus a La Nina. So it's a huge, huge implication if that is what we see. So far, that's been the case. Here's the anomalies, again, below average for almost the entire west, and then above average for this whole corridor here, where we see this flow from the south up to the north, up the eastern states. So all of these areas are much needing precipitation, and they could be getting it here over the next 10 to 15 days. Really, really great news. Now, the total snowfall in the GFS model is obviously going to be a little bit more underwhelming than the European. We do see mountainous west areas seeing slightly below average snowfall, still getting up to a foot for most mountain ranges for some areas, so it's not the end of the world. We do get a lot of snowfall developing right at the tail end of the model run. Keep that in mind, and I would take this with a grain of salt because it's like 300 plus hours out. But for a lot of these areas here, could be seeing 6 to 10 inches. The lakes could be seeing multiple feet. I think this is a little bit more realistic. The European model is a little bit more aggressive with multiple snowstorms. I see 3 here at least. I know there's 4, but I can't tell where this upper Midwest one is. Somewhere in there is where we get the first one. The second one skirts along here underneath. Moves just like this. So I'm going to draw an arrow through it. Something like that. And we get this snowfall here for a lot of the plains and Great Lakes here. The third one moves up through the east, kind of like this. And we see quite a bit of snowfall in here, tacking on with our upcoming snowstorm for Wednesday, Thursday time frame. And then we get this almost exclusively East Coast one that moves right up the East Coast just like this. And this one, I want to look at this one exclusively just to give you an idea. We'll look at 3-day snowfall. We'll try to like pin them all. So let's see what happens here. Here is that first upper Midwest snowstorm. So again, we're seeing, 6 to 10 inches in some of those purple spots for the upper Midwest. Here comes the next one. And we see a lot of snow for Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan. This could be a lot closer to a 10 to 15 inch event in the bullseye. So if this model's correct, of course. Then we get that more interior snowstorm for the Appalachian Mountain Range, where we're looking at, again, a more 6 to 10 inch snowstorm. And then here's that exclusively East Coast one. I actually got to shorten it down to just this. And, we're looking at, in the blues, 2 to 4 inches, maybe 2 to 6. Purples are 6 to 10. We're seeing that pretty exclusively near the Chesapeake Bay, and then also for southeast Massachusetts. We have seen snowstorms like this. It is not impossible. And we've seen a much heftier one, as you know, right around Christmas time in 2010. So not impossible by any means. The only reason doubt is coming isn't because I think, this is too far south or too early in the season. Nothing like that. It's just that this is so far out on the model run is the only thing holding me back here. And it's a little unconventional, but we'll see if we see some stuff like this develop here over the coming days on the models, because this could be a pretty consistent signal if we see that deep Arctic air move in. Still a little bit unknown. Speaking of the deep Arctic air, let's just move straight into the temperature anomalies. And when we look at the GFS model here, we're going to see both be more aggressive at times. We see this warmth lasts for the East Coast until about Wednesday. Thursday is the first cold day again. Pretty brutal as well, especially in the greens and deeper blues here. So for these areas here, very, very brutal. Again, warm developing out west, classic positive PNA look, but it doesn't last this time around actually very long. Here's Friday, still a little cool around the eastern seaboard. Saturday, you still have some left over. Sunday, we start to warm though in the east significantly. That lasts through Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, we start to see some cold for the southeast a little bit. Thursday here, same story. Nothing too deep as far as Arctic air until we reach that next Saturday the 21st and the Sunday the 22nd, Monday the 23rd. We start to see cold air move back in just before Christmas, which, if you ask me, I think cold air around Christmas just makes it feel like Christmas. I don't want it to be 65 on Christmas. I don't want it to be 70 on Christmas. I want it to be like definitely below 50 on Christmas at least. Like, it should have a nip in the air. So if this is the case, it will feel that way for many folks, maybe even close to freezing or below freezing. So it would be a very wintry Christmas if we saw something like this set up. The big thing is the if there, because it is very far out. But the European model, we're going to see similar things here for a while. The only thing I would say is we're a lot more brutal with this upcoming Thursday's cooldown. We are seeing in these purple areas 15 to 25 degrees below normal. And the magentas here, which reach into Minnesota and Wisconsin, 25 to 35 degrees below normal. Very, very significant departure from what's typical there. As we keep going towards Friday, it sticks around very cold along the east. Saturday here starts to move out. Sunday, we see this warm up pretty substantial, just like our current one. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the eastern seaboard, and then we get through it. So we're looking at maybe 3, 4, 5 day warm up, followed by very brutal cold air here for Saturday the 21st, Sunday the 22nd. That is very significant. And then Monday it looks to be even worse for the Christmas Eve here on December 23rd. Very, very brutal. And I could see this lasting through Christmas Eve and Christmas Day if it looks just like this. So very interesting stuff to track. Again, a lot colder and a lot snowier than our previous, like, probably 4 or 5 videos that we've uploaded. We saw a pretty dreary outlook for cold and snow lovers for a while there, but it has turned around here for a couple of days. Now it could turn around again, but we're gonna track it together over the coming days. So be sure to subscribe. We upload almost every single day, and we're gonna be going through this together, keeping you guys up to date with any changes, any deepening of any of these features. We're gonna just watch it together. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.